All right, conversation of the day. You could go a million different ways here. Jackson Hole, I don't know why our next guest isn't in Jackson Hole. I'm sure she's got the boots. I'm sure she's got the hat and all that kind of cool stuff. Danielle DiMartino Booth, CEO, Chief Strategist at QI Research, joining us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Danielle, first, let's just go to the boring stuff first. Minutes today. Anything from the Fed that we don't already know?
I don't think that there'll be any kind of look forward to subsequent data releases that we've seen, which they have in the past put in minutes, even though you would think minutes would be stuck in time. I will be interested to see, how many, several, most, a majority of FOMC committee members were concerned about inflation going into this meeting and how many were concerned about a weakening jobs market backdrop, because you'll want to start to see the balance. It was widely broadcast that Bowman and Waller were going to be dissenting prior to the meetings. That was kind of a nothing burger for market participants. They saw that coming, and yet the language of the FOMC statement was softened. So for whom was it softened? Mm-hmm. Were there other potential dissents? And, you can go on and on with, the game theory here. What happens if Moran gets an expeditious confirmation in the Senate? Will there be sufficient numbers of doves, depending on how non-farm payrolls hit on September the 5th, to potentially have a majority dissent on September the 17th,
wow,
calling for an extra large rate cut? We don't know, but we do know that that statement was not changed because of Bowman or Waller. Somebody else there was very uncomfortable with not beginning to ease again in July.
Yeah, first time we had dissenters in 30 years.
Double, yes.
Right? Yeah. Right. So do you think we're going to hear from Powell? Will he sound more Volcker-esque or more Greenspan-y when he speaks on Friday?
You're speaking Danielle's language.
Yeah, it's really, really hard to say. He'll want to wax Volcker, but I don't think he wants to upset markets that much. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to necessarily see Dirty Harry Powell at the podium, who we did see a few years ago at Jackson Hole. You got up and it was like 8.5 minutes and goodbye. But I know that he needs to introduce some kind of nuance, some kind of placating for other members on the committee pending this big payrolls report. And I think everything hinges on it. And therein lies the irony, because we don't know if market participants are going to take the data at face value when it's reported.
Well, after that huge revision.
Well, after the huge revision, and we've also had a change in terms of who's the commissioner now running the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Are market participants going to say, gee, it was biased one way in one direction, now it's maybe biased in a different direction? And could President Trump and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent shoot themselves in the foot if they insist on a really strong payrolls report that puts all the doves on the sideline saying, we're good with 25 basis points? Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of inflation data last week, Danielle, and a lot of people are I think a lot of market participants are just trying to figure out where in the economy is this tariff-induced inflation. Maybe there isn't any. I have no idea.
Good question.
But we didn't see it really.
Because it's really not popping up in a material way yet.
I know. We saw the PPI came in hotter. So how do you think about it?
It's not popping up yet for the consumer. I think we've seen tones of that in what Target has reported to date. It's very difficult to pass along any kind of price increases. Some of the biggest price increases we're seeing due to tariffs are in furniture and recreational vehicles. Two areas of consumer spending that are on their knees. So good luck passing those through, even though if you're a producer, you must shoulder those higher input costs. So it becomes more of a margin squeeze story at this juncture. One of the biggest drivers of the PPI coming in hotter than what was expected were portfolio management fees, which are just a reflection of assets under management in the stock market, which just means stocks go up, the PPI go up. That feeds into the PCE, which is on everybody's radar, of course.
So what you're saying is a lot of these companies are indeed doing what the president wanted them to do, which is eat the tariffs.
Well, I certainly don't think he would use those words.
well, the other countries are paying the tariffs.
And there's something to be said for the fact that none of this is decided by the courts yet. Mm-hmm. Companies are really pushing back, and listening to the legal experts, there's no guarantee that corporate America does not prevail in reversing these tariffs.
How do you think the consumer's doing out there, Danielle?
I don't think the consumer is doing all that well. We really are seeing a big ramping up in delinquencies, in bankruptcy filings, and it's accelerating as the year goes on. We're seeing, delinquencies and distress go up the income chain, up the income ladder, as student loan repayments begin to filter through to some of the higher income earners in the country. So I think the consumer's in a very tenuous place when, as your last guest was talking about artificial intelligence, AI data center, when AI spending is a greater contributor to the economy than consumption, when GDP 70% consumption, you say, whoa, wait a minute, the consumer's really struggling here.
Yeah. And the consumer's been the pillar of this economy for so long.
Absolutely.
Are we sort of not paying enough attention to that rise in those delinquency rates, do you think?
I don't think we are. I don't think we're paying enough attention to the millions upon millions of gig workers out there who are struggling to get by, to record numbers of multiple job holders, to record levels of multi-generational household formation, to the highest percentage of young adults living with their parents since the Great Depression. This is all documented data, but it's also a sign of underlying household distress, not being able to make ends meet unless you take extraordinary measures, and I don't think we're paying close enough attention to that.
And thanks to Danielle, she turned me on to this bankruptcy dashboard, BCY Go.
BCY Go.
It's a good way to kind of track it. All right, Danielle, you're based in Dallas, Texas. I like to ask you periodically, things still ripping down in Dallas, Texas, economy-wise?
Well, Y'all Street seems to be proceeding as expected, so Dallas is very excited about that. That being said, our home sales are on their knees. Home prices are falling. It's very much a bifurcated economy. Austin's reeling.
Yeah.
Is that just the hangover from the last 3, 4, 5 years?
To a certain degree, but again, Dallas is very much a microcosm of the K-shaped economy that we've seen in the United States, and there are a lot of struggling families, which is why we're seeing, again, home prices fall throughout the Metroplex.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it just seems like every company I know is moving to Dallas or somewhere in Texas.
Wait, before we let you go, if you were a betting woman, what happens at the September meeting? Do we get the cut and by how big?
I think we for sure get 25 basis points. I have no idea what Antoni's going to pull out of his hat for non-farm payrolls. I couldn't guess that in a million years.
Right.
But if it's a continuation of weak payrolls data, I think we do see 50 basis points.
All right, Danielle DiMartino, Booth, CEO and Chief Strategist, QI Research. Always appreciate getting a few minutes of her time. She was on the Fed down in Dallas, so she knows of what she speaks. Well,